Good morning. This is the Blainsville webcast. They can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Get more information, listen to previous shows at our website, which is behind me, blainsworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information that people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce author Bill Hemmig for being my guest today. And Bill, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching
Hey,
this.
fans.
Okay. And Bill, I should mention, used to be a colleague of mine when he and I were both at Bucks County Community College. I have to say were because I understand you just recently retired as well.
Just retired.
Okay, so congratulations on your retirement. And now, instead of being working in a library, Bill's a writer of fiction and plays. He's also, I love that, a reformed playwright turned author of short fiction and poetry. Before we go any further, let me ask you a couple of questions. One having to do with, as a kid, where you grow up?
I grew up in Reading, Pennsylvania, so just next county over from Bucks.
As a kid growing up, did you always know you wanted to be a writer?
I don't remember when I didn't want to be a writer. I started writing things probably in elementary school. I don't remember much until junior high, but I wrote a lot in junior high. It was funny actually because my two favorite things sort of culturally at that time. This was like the early 70s, was reading Shakespeare. I devoured Shakespeare's plays at a very early age, but also the soap opera Dark Shadows, which if people don't know, it was a soap opera from that period about the supernatural, and there was a very prominent vampire who became quite famous. So I actually did start to write a five act play about vampires. I never finished it,
Oh,
but
bummer. Do you remember the very first thing you wrote that ever got published?
uh yes. I think I had a couple poems published in the high school literary magazine. Those were the first.
Okay. And are they probably behind you? Is in that collection of books? Is
They
that
might be back there somewhere. Yes, I'm terrible at getting rid of things.
well, no, that's very cool. So high school, that was your first published work. Do you remember the first time you ever got paid for writing?
Oh boy. This might have been, I mean, I'll preface that by saying like I've made like $200 total in my life from writing, but I think the first one was a friend and this was long after college. A friend commissioned me to write a uh, a holiday play for a theater that she was creating. So I spent the summer writing a holiday play, and it did very well. Got good reviews. I got a little bit, maybe $50 out of it, but I think that was the first.
But it was cool to see your works,
Oh yeah.
and actually be put on the stage. Did that play have legs at all? Did it go anytime beyond the one?
You know what? It should, I think it should have because it was, I mean, my work tends to be a little off the wall, but this one was, it could have been a Hallmark holiday movie. So I'm not sure why it never went anywhere else.
But this one, it's interesting, wasn't about vampires. Is that correct?
It was not about vampires.
So anyway, so you then were writing and started writing a little bit. How did you then get to the position I knew you as a librarian? How'd that come into play?
Well, I worked in I worked in for an off-Broadway theater for several years after my first graduate degree in theater art. And I was living in New York trying to be a playwright, and I did have some small successes in the late 80s, early 90s, and then that kind of dried up and blew away. And theater kind of lost interest in me, and I moved out of New York, and I found myself being 40 years old with no retirement savings. And I thought, I better find something that I would enjoy doing where I can make more money. And I had always, I had worked as a library clerk in several different places as I was supporting myself as a playwright. And so I thought, well, I love libraries. I like librarians. I like the atmosphere. So I went to Rutgers and got a degree in library science. And that's how I wound up. Worked at Rutgers for a few years and then went to books.
It's funny you said that because I always thought of myself as kind of a frustrated librarian, that
Ah,
I love. And in college, I worked in college part-time in the library, I loved it, and I'm an information junkie, but for some reason, I never became a librarian. I guess in part, my ex was a librarian, so I thought that was enough, to have
mm.
one in the family. And she actually went to Rutgers as well. But you go to Rutgers, you suck it out. And so you actually were a librarian at Rutgers for a while. When did you come to Bucks?
I started at Bucks in 2006
Okay. Yeah, I think that's
as the online learning librarian.
okay. I think that's why we never really got to know each other because I was kind of leaving at that time. I think I left in 2007.
I remember you inviting me to join the union
Oh,
soon
yeah.
after I got there.
I would have done that. Exactly. Sorry
Mhm.
about that, but I'm glad you did.
No,
So
no, no.
you were a librarian, and so that was interesting. Your full-time gig there was you were the online librarian, or what was this?
Online learning librarian. I mean, I wasn't online all the time. I was just part of my job was supporting getting the library into the online classes.
And was that your position for the remaining of your tenure at Bucks? Did you have that position?
I had that position for 9 years, and then I got kicked upstairs and became dean of the department.
Okay, and how many years did you do that?
10.
How many?
10.
10. Wow. So interesting. So when you left Bucks, you were the dean of the department?
Hmm.
So question, different options. Being a librarian, being a dean, being a writer, your favorite,
Being a writer.
is it? Well,
Yeah.
talk
I
about
enjoyed being a dean because I like supporting people. I like making sure that they're able to do what they want to do in their jobs. But no, writing it's completely different for me. I learn things about myself. It's therapy. It's self-examination, and it's just fun.
well, talk about your writing process then. So as a writer, are you the kind of guy, do you get up like every morning at 7 and write for 2 hours straight? Is that what you're?
I'm still in the process of developing a new routine for myself since I retired. Yes, well, getting up at 7:15 doesn't happen very often. But I do try to write in the morning and sort of structure my day that way. I write in the morning and then maybe I'll work out for a while in the middle of the day and then go do something else for the afternoon, read or work in my garden or whatever.
And so when you're writing, are you writing specifically on one project at a time, or do you write several projects simultaneously?
I usually have a few things going on at once because the thing is, once I finished a draft of something and I know it's not finished, I need to set it aside for a while and give it and me some space and sort of clear my head of it so that I can go back fresh afterwards. But while I'm doing that, I'm working on something else.
And when
So
you,
I
I'm
always
sorry.
have at least two things going on at the same time.
And so when you're writing, I wonder if people still do this. I assume you use computer, or are there still people who write longhand? Write out everything first?
I'm kind of a Luddite in that regard. I do all my first drafts in longhand.
Do you really? Well, you're one of the guys. Wow.
Yeah. Then I'll word process and once I have it word processed, I'll do all my revisions. Well, even then, sometimes I print it up and go in there with a pen and make my revisions.
I have the problem, Bill, that I can't read my own writing. It's
I can barely read my own
oh,
writing
really?
too.
So I don't know if as I get older if that happens, but that's a real problem for me because for the life of me, I can't read, write down. But that really is unusually one of the first writers I met who admit that they still write everything longhand. Did you always do that even with the plays, all the stuff you were writing? Did you always write them longhand?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I always did. Yeah, fiction, poetry, plays, doesn't matter. It's all longhand for the first draft.
Now, out of all the stuff you're writing, you mentioned so obviously you do this is what you're liking best. Do you have a particular type of writing you enjoy the most?
I am, the fiction has been the most satisfying for me so far. Um, I only started writing poetry again last spring at the suggestion of some poet friends of mine, and that's going well, but I'm still kind of finding my way. But I've been doing fiction since the early 20 aughts. So I'm more expert at it and I'm more confident with it.
Now, in your fiction writing, is there a particular type thing you write about or style you write?
People always ask me what genre I'm in, and I say literary fiction, but that's kind of cheating because literary fiction is just what you call something that won't fit any other genre. Um, my editor says that I'm absurdist. That surprised me when I first read it, but I can kind of see it because I probably do look at the world in absurd ways, but I'm so used to it, I just think I'm being realistic.
So it's your world and you
Yeah.
get other people into it. We'll talk about that. And so we were talking off the air about a particular project, either the one you kind of just finished. You just finished one project, right? I think you were telling me.
Well, I just had actually my first piece of creative nonfiction was just came out in an anthology that my publisher put out.
And what was that about?
Actually, it's about Lambertville's Shad Festival. A lot of your audience probably never heard of it, but
No, actually, I have, but talk more about it. Yeah.
um, well, it was funny because they were auditions for the anthology, which is just material about New Jersey. It's fiction, poetry, comics, you name it. Um, I wanted to go to the Shad Festival, this was 2 years ago, to get some inspiration for writing a short story about that took place in or around the Shad Festival. This is a big thing that happens in Lambertville, New Jersey every April. The shad goes up the Delaware to spawn, and a lot of people's livelihood depends on catching and selling the fish. So it's a big celebration. And I went and I wound up not getting any ideas for a short story, but then I decided that my own experience of the festival was kind potentially interesting. So instead, I wrote a creative nonfiction piece about my experience of being at the Shad Festival.
Because it reminds me of kind of my background a little bit. I started out way back when as a journalism major.
Hmm.
And so did you ever want to do that though, or, to write nonfiction about a Shad Fest?
Not, not really. Um, I mean, there is some sort of creative journalism that goes on. That it's not all just flat news making, but no. I did some academic writing and librarianship when I first went to Bucks, but I lost interest in that too because it was just taking me away from the writing I wanted to do.
Now, even then, were you still, even though you were at Bucks, were you still wanting to write or you were still writing at the same time when that?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm writing a lot more now that I have more time, but yeah, I mean wherever I could, evenings, weekends, holidays.
Well,
The
let me
winter
tell you,
break I used to get a lot done.
since you mentioned it, if I can put you on the spot, the Shad Festival, which I know I just have heard of, but I know nothing about, can you just share a little bit of what that writing was about? Do you have it in front of you?
I do have it in front of me. I could read a couple paragraphs that
Yeah, just give a
explains it.
sense of, I mean, that you went to it, all of a sudden want to write about it. It's kind of cool.
Well, and also my this is the third one of my publisher's New Jersey anthologies, Disco Fries and Scenic Drives, and my story's in it. And they hadn't published anything about Lambertville before, and it's really it, a lot of people. It's really a tourist destination. Great restaurants, yeah, antique stop shops.
Do you live in Lambertville?
I did live in Lambertville for several years and then moved sort of into the countryside near Lambertville, and now I'm in Bucks County. But
Okay.
I'm still like 15 minutes from Lambertville. Yeah, I can read some of this. Not just briefly,
Just
but
give
it
a
gives you
feel
a
for
little background.
give a feel for what the festival is all about.
Yeah. Shadfest began in 1981, just as Lambertville was starting to awaken from its post-industrial slump. Specifically, it was billed as a celebration of the return of the shad to the Delaware, which began 2 decades earlier after a huge cleanup effort downriver once again made the river hospitable to shad migration. At any other time, the shad is a saltwater fish, but when the urge to breed takes hold, it suddenly, salmon-like, prefers fresh water and heads upriver, where local residents have since the 1880s been waiting to haul, Haul, crowds of them in. Remember the Cole Porter song in which the singer demands to be served shad roe? That shad. Mostly, though, Shadfest is a huge carnival, and I'm quoting, 2 days filled with handcrafted art, jewelry, home goods, a variety of delectable food, music, and fun for the whole family, as described by the local Chamber of Commerce, which now organizes it.
Sounds like so you go now, do you go to this every year?
I don't go to it every year. Actually, I hadn't been to it in several years when I went in 24. Um, I'm not a crowd person. So I don't necessarily seek out circusy atmospheres, but um, but I wanted to go this time. I wanted to have the experience. I wanted to have something to write about, and it was lots of fun.
It's interesting, Bill, listen to you in terms of the things you get into, because I also, I think I found out about that on Facebook. You're also kind of a real buff when it comes to independent bookstores, right? And talk a little bit about your interest in independent bookstores.
Well, I worked in an independent bookstore for 6 years before I went to Rutgers for my library degree. So I've always been quite supportive of them. I think you get an experience in an independent bookstore that you don't get at a chain, and you certainly don't get on Amazon. So, I mean, the staff are very knowledgeable. They're very generous. There are quite a few in Bucks County. Another project that my publisher did was they sent a colleague, Margaret Montet, and I out into New Jersey last summer, and we visited 12 independent bookstores, wrote a blog about our experiences, which is on the publisher's website, and they are about to release a 2026 Indie Bookstores of New Jersey calendar with photographs that Margaret and I took of these 12 bookstores. So each month is a different bookshop.
That must have been a lot of fun, wasn't it? Going to the different bookstores. Did you have a good
It
time?
was a lot of fun.
So, by the way, if folks want to get, and the calendar sounds interesting, they can get that. You'll eventually put information on that on your website, I guess, when it's
Yeah,
ready.
I can put up the publisher's URL.
Yeah, very cool. The I keep telling you, I want you to come now to go outside of New Jersey. Come to uh, where I live. Asheville is a very famous independent bookstore, Malaprops. And at the same time, that would probably be fun. I could see you doing also as you're going out, you should do also restaurants in the area or local independent restaurants. Or when you went to a bookstore, did you always go out to eat at the same time?
Um, Not always, but I did a few times.
Because right, some independent bookstores serve food, right, or limited food,
You know what? I don't think any of the six
right?
that I went to served food. I don't remember. I don't think so.
So that's funny. The one in Bucks County, in Buncombe County in North Carolina does.
Yeah.
Well, you went out to that project, independent bookstores. It's going to be it's really cool. Be a calendar of independent bookstores. Sounds a little like the Bridges of Madison County. So he did Bridges, you did independent bookstores.
Yeah,
You still get a kick out of going to independent bookstores?
I do. Yeah, and there are quite a few in Bucks County where I live, and they're very supportive of my publisher and their authors, so I'm very grateful for their being there.
And are they still surviving? Independent bookstores can still survive?
Yeah, they are. It's funny. One thing that I kind of learned in my travels is that in a weird way, Amazon kind of helped independent bookshops because they drove Borders out of business. And a lot of Barnes and Nobles shut
That's
down,
right. Yeah.
and it left a brick and mortar vacuum that I know one of the bookstores I visited is Little City Books in Hoboken, and they told me they might not have ever had the idea to open a bookshop if the borders hadn't shut down, because then Hoboken suddenly didn't have a bookstore.
Yeah, very interesting. And so the book's still there and
It's
surviving.
still there and it's still going very well. One
So,
of the biggest children's book sections I've ever seen.
so aside from writing about a chat festival, I just love that to write about. What else are you working on now, Bill?
I am working on my first short story collection. American,
I can
having
say,
trouble
yeah.
doing this. Americana. My first short story collection, same publisher, came out, and I'm now my big project is working on the next short story collection. I think I may be about a third of the way through.
So on this one that came out, how many stories are in that?
11. Six of them are standard short stories, and five of them are flash fiction, which, if your viewers don't know what that is, they
No, I don't.
usually define it as a short story that's less than 1,000 words. So quite short.
Okay. So how do you get the ideas then for your short stories?
Uh, in different ways. I know a couple of them are based on plays that I wrote or pieces of plays that I wrote. I have two or three stories that were written like that. Or they just some of them come from personal experience, or I'll just be reading. I read a lot of nonfiction, much more than I read fiction, and I'll just be reading something about, anthropology or something, and I'll just get an idea for a story.
So when you get an idea for a story, do you write it down or how do you keep the ideas?
I write it down if I think I have to, and as the older I get, the more I think I have to. So, I do take notes.
So the one book you have, the Americana. So what were some of the other stories in that? What are they about? You have 11 different kinds of stories you had in that?
Yeah, they're all over the place. I have one about a woman who's a real estate agent who has imaginary friends based on female characters from literature, and she has conversations with them. I have one about the only one I've ever written about a librarian so far, but he's a children's librarian and he's working as a substitute in an elementary school. And he comes down with some strange illness that causes him to relive his past and have auditory and visual hallucinations about popular culture, and it gets very strange.
Did you have, were you ever a children's librarian or
No.
you?
No, I'm familiar with children's books from working in a bookstore, but no, I've never been a children's librarian.
Okay, so that sounds like a different kind of thing. Where does it, in terms of moving ahead, do you see eventually, Bill, you putting together, will you be writing a novel somewhere down the road, do you think?
Well, I think that might be coming because one of the stories that I thought I was going to write for the new collection, I think it's going to be too long. It started getting very involved in my head, and I think it's going to be either a novella, which is sort of lengthwise, it falls in between, or it's just going to be a novel. Well, but I'll see.
And just listen to you. Do you ever see any of this becoming a play again, or do you think you'll ever revisit that?
I I would if there was interest. I wouldn't get it's such a game, and I've lost most of my theater connections either because we don't live near each other anymore, or they've gotten out of the business as well. It would be real hard to get back into it again. And unsolicited manuscripts, and I've never had an agent.
But it's not the same too, even though same thing to writing a novel or writing a short story. You have no idea how it's going to be received until I guess you put it out
Right.
there, on the internet.
And very often after it's published, I don't know how it's being received. It's funny. Um, I I don't get a lot of. I mean, I do get some people who say they like my stuff, but most of the people I know don't say anything, which makes me a little nervous because I'm thinking either they haven't bothered to read it or they read it and they don't like it and they don't want to say so. But I'm more optimistic than that, and I like my writing. So
Well, that's good. How about poetry in terms of that? When you write poetry, any subject area you work in, or you like writing poetry about particular kind?
that poetry tends to be a little more confessional than my fiction. Again, I haven't been at it very long. I just started last spring, but you might know that April is National Poetry Month, and there was a journal. The editor was publishing visual writing prompts. So she put up a picture and say, use this as inspiration for writing a poem. And she did that one each day during National Poetry Month. And I gave myself the task of writing a poem a day
Oh,
based on those pictures.
so how many
And some of them turned out very well. Some of them I'll never go back to. One or two of them actually is going to be fiction, I decided, but it was a really good experience.
So you did that for what, 30 days? You wrote 30 different
Yes.
poems? Hate to mention it, but I'll mention it. Where does AI fit into this whole process?
For me, it doesn't really. I have I've dabbled with ChatGPT. I haven't actually the front cover of Americana
Right.
is actually created by AI, but
Really?
not by
Actually,
me, not by me, by the publisher.
okay, I like it.
So that's sort of a yeah, an AI mashup. Yeah, and I love the cover. It's fantastic.
I thought so too.
My apologies to all graphic designers.
Because one of the things I'm grateful for not being in teaching anymore, Bill, because especially teaching has changed, going to have to go back to, especially teaching language and lit or English teachers, going to have to go back to having people write in the class, essays, because you can't possibly let people write at home because,
Yeah, no, our instructors are beside themselves.
but I guess that'd be the only way to do it, right? To force you to write in class. Um,
That's about yeah, that's the only surefire way. I mean, ChatGPT and some other, writing AIs, they're not very good.
right.
So far, they'll get better, which is the problem. But right now, it's pretty easy for the professor to tell when
So
AI is being used. Um, ChatGPT will make up source materials that
right.
don't even exist. And
Well, the worst, Bill, a buddy of mine's a lawyer, and he mentioned that, yeah, they make up citations, and
Mhm.
and they got caught on that, and they got in trouble, rightly so. I mentioned too, it's going to affect the librarians as well, though, too, because even in terms of looking for information,
Oh yeah.
it's pretty easy to look up stuff on
Yeah, they've
ChatGPT.
had to change their whole approach to, well, I mean, yeah, they teach information literacy classes to the composition students, and now they have to include AI.
Was it ever happening? Even when you were still a Bucks, it was just starting to happen, I guess.
The last year I was there, some of the English professors, I swear, spent half their time um, putting in plagiarism reports.
Right. Can you imagine? By the way, as we're talking, I see that as a great story for you, though. We're talking about a librarian faced with ChatGPT issues, or that could be a second time you write about use ChatGPT.
Or a writer with ChatGPT issues. Actually, you just sparked something in me. I think that would be an interesting place to go.
Or we find a poem about the writer faced with the dilemma of using ChatGPT versus himself doing the writing, throwing out ChatGPT.
Well, publishers and literary journals now are pretty much all saying we don't accept anything that's AI generated. And luckily, it's still at the point where if it is, they can tell.
But just as you're speaking and as we're talking about it, just makes me one of the reasons I'm glad I'm not teaching because again, no, I used to have my students was unheard of, a business teacher, marketing teacher. do writing, but I always had my students write, and
Hmm.
I could tell I did certain things to make sure it was their writing, but times do change. So moving forward, so you now have this one book that's already out. You're working on your second volume. What are some of the other things you're working on as we speak?
Uh, well, I've still got my thoughts about that novel churning around in my head. I actually started it and then stopped. I have to go back and start it over because I've had a lot of ideas since. So that's still in there somewhere, but it's not a high priority at this point. I rather work on the short story collection. Um, Self-promotion takes up a lot of time. Um,
It's funny you say that. I use a line, Bill, when I teach, and I still work with people, talk about self-promotion, and it was trying to think who said it. A guy by the name of Ken Blanchard. He's a management theorist. He's kind of well known. And he said, if you don't toot your own horn, else will use it as a spittoon.
oh yeah.
So, but your point is well taken that, and a lot of people don't appreciate that, but just because you write something, you have to then get it published and you have to get somebody to hopefully buy it down the road.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to have a publisher who's got my back and they set me up with readings occasionally and they advertise and they have lots of merch and stuff to give away that promotes my books. But I still have to do a great deal of it myself. And since 99% of writers are introverts, it's not something that comes naturally to us, just going out there and blowing our own horn. So it's work.
Do you consider
I'd
yourself
rather be writing.
do you consider yourself an introvert?
Oh, sure.
Right? And so, Bill, if folks want to track you down or find out more about you, or well, I cut you up before you were talking about readings. Do you like doing readings?
I do. Actually, I'm doing one Wednesday evening with six other fiction and nonfiction writers at a public library.
Okay, well, since you mentioned it, and this will come out before is this coming Wednesday?
Hmm.
It's what night? Monday. I'll have this to you by tomorrow, so you can mention it. It's coming Wednesday. Bill Hemming is going to be where?
At the Southampton branch of the Bucks County Free Library in Feasterville, Pennsylvania.
Okay, I'm reading you and six other authors. And what time will that be?
5:30 to 7:30.
Yeah. No, you know that library well. Very nice library, big library.
It is, yeah.
So come see Bill Hemmig, and you'll be with six other writers, all fiction writers or different kinds of things.
The library gives us two readings a year. We do fiction and nonfiction in the fall, and then in April for National Poetry Month, we do poetry.
Very cool. Have you ever spoken at Bucks?
The library has been kind enough to give me a couple of readings and a couple of receptions. The library, I mean, I was their boss, so figure. Yeah, the library's been very kind to me and my work.
Okay, very exciting. So, Bill, if somebody wants to track you down, best way to find out about you is how?
If I can share my screen for a second,
That'd be
I
great.
have some.
Okay, it's Bill Hemmig. There you go. Thanks. So, best way is first of all that website is
Yeah,
good.
the first one is I'm a member of the Arts and Cultural Council of Bucks County, which is a wonderful county-wide organization for artists and writers. I have a page on their website for myself. I'm in the process of putting together my own website, billhemmig.com, but it's a work in progress. And if you look for it right now, you won't find it because I haven't published it yet. But maybe come back sometime next week and
Okay, great.
hopefully it'll be there. You can find me on Facebook. Just search for my name. Here's the URL. I'm on Instagram as @BillHemmig. And also, here's a link to my publisher's website, but if you just Google Read Furiously Publisher, it'll come up and you can see all my works that they publish. You could order the calendar if you have New Jersey friends and relatives who love books. It might be a good Christmas present. But yeah, there we are.
And Bill, you can put that down again and come back to me if you would. Just shut that
Hmm.
down. Great. And so the other things that you mentioned, we'll give a shout out to your publisher because I'm very impressed, how they help you and support you. Who is the publisher again?
Read Furiously, the publisher, it's a husband and wife, Adam Wilson and Samantha Adzani. Samantha had been teaching comp part-time at Bucks, which is how, and she was a writing tutor, which is how I got to know her. She's not at Bucks anymore. But he does the production end of things, she does the editing end of things. They're both dreams to work with. They have a small staff to do their marketing and graphic design and all that stuff that you'd expect. But I love working with them. It's a small independent publisher. They're in Trenton, New Jersey.
Okay. And you have to love the name. I just love Read Furiously. It's just what a great name for anybody
Hmm.
to use. Anyway, Bill, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of the Blaine's World
Thank you for
webcast.
inviting me. This has been fun.
Okay, well, like I said, I said I'll come see you, but I don't get up to Bucks County uh, too often anymore. But if you come on down we want to get you to Asheville to that independent bookstore. Love to catch up with you. And again, I'll hopefully we'll bump into each other somewhere down the road, man. Thanks.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.